I want to talk about the importance of telling love stories. I want to do this new series called Late Night Office Hours, where this is the raw, uncut stream of consciousness that comes from my mind. I get a lot of comments on doing long form videos and kind of putting down the academic language and really speaking on topics of adulthood or different intersections that we all experience, that we all yearn, desire, ponder, and experience. So, if I'm looking down, it's because I have a long laundry list of topics that we will discuss. But going back to the importance of storytelling, I'm going to read what I wrote and then kind of go from there. There's no script. This is going to be a ramble. I'm recording this right before I go to sleep, so bear with me. I wrote the importance of telling love stories is being able to tell the full story of who you are beyond professional and your academic sense. And this is also my biggest challenge that I have. When I say being in grad school changes the way that you think. And also, if you're doing it full time, this is what you are spending your entire days, every day thinking about, working towards. And it's really hard to compartmentalize academic you, professional you, because I'm also within the education space, and then not intellectualizing your life essentially, right? And so understanding who you are as a full being, and extending that understanding to who you are as a romantic lover. Um, I also wrote being genuine in your exploration and the importance of that authenticity and genuineness. Is that a word? I believe it is. As it relates to your experience and being truthful in who you are as a lover. I want to stop right there and dig a little bit deeper. What I mean by being truthful in who you are as a lover, a lot of times these conversations of how you show up in romance, how you show up in love, it gets real performative because everybody is the best of the best. Everybody is the bee's knees. Everybody is the cat's pajamas, right? Everybody is this amazing romantic being, this amazing lover, just grandiose, over the top, hot, steamy, sexy. You're all in one. Um, but I think a lot of times we leave that through the lens of these performative scripts, especially when you're creating content and dialogue around romance. And this is going to be hypocritical to what I just said, but I'm able to view love not only through one vantage point or one lens now. I'm able to look at love objectively. I'm able to not see the erotic in love or in conversations around intimacy and not internalize that as my own, which is a skill that I'm very, very grateful for because I have removed, I don't want to say the rose tinted lens, but this breath of naivete, right? And so going back to the objective that I was talking about on being truthful in your storytelling of who you are as a lover is also being truthful in your fears and vulnerabilities and in your avoidance, and not making excuses and not denoting what birthed these things, right? But being able to lean in through a more vulnerable lens to get to the beautiful, transcending love that just always has your fingertips scraping the clouds, you know? Um, what did I also write? I said, I guess this is also a gentle reminder to myself because from dawn to dusk, I'm constantly engaged in my scholarship. So that process of compartmentalizing is very challenging, but a requirement to reach a new depth personally, emotionally, and also from a vantage point of vulnerability. Understanding that vulnerability is the name of the game. I understand vulnerability from a theoretical perspective, right? And I understand the benefit of being vulnerable. And I think a lot of times people conflate and confuse vulnerability with authenticity, right? Like this is just how I am. That's how I am. That's just me. I've been like that my whole entire life. And we think that is vulnerability. That is not. And that is something that I'm having to realize myself. So, like, what is vulnerability? And like this total and utter, not upset, blah, 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 brain fart, this total, utter acceptance. That's the word that I was scraping for. When it comes to understanding that you are going to be rejected in some way, shape, or form, and not allowing that rejection or even the thought of rejection to be so daunting and damning that you don't try again. I think that is my new understanding of vulnerability, especially because I'm someone that is very reserved. Um, and that's kind of like paradoxical because on social media, like I post 6 times a day on TikTok. When I'm really active on LinkedIn, like I try to post 6 times a day on every platform that I have, whether it's YouTube, Threads, Substack, LinkedIn, TikTok. And so there is this maybe perception of like outgoing, which I am, but like this openness, that's the word, or maybe this level of vulnerability, um that I'm actually more reserved in, and interrogating where is that reservation from and what stories and labels am I putting on myself, especially as I'm navigating adulthood and getting older, because we understand that people get stuck in our ways, but also like not forming extreme deep attachments to the labels in which we place on ourselves, because I don't want those to be like concrete pillars in which I transcribe and tell my lived experience and my story from. Hopefully, I articulated that correctly. And when I think about telling the story of my love life, Khadijah, and what does love mean to you? One, that's the first thing that you're going to have to be able to do if we're going to document and tell stories of love, is define what is love. And that is something, that's the definition that is ever changing, that is going to be dependent on your lived experience. Also, be able to understand and define your fears, which that in itself is such a vulnerable experience, not just the defining in silence, but also to be able to say it out loud to the people closest to you, or if you have like hundreds of thousands of followers, like what are you really scared of? Fuck that other shit. What are you scared of? How are you working through that? How are you avoiding it? And then again, going back to how does that affect the stories of love in which you tell, not only to yourself, but also to those that you want to be in love with and share community with, whether it's romantically, platonically, um, in a communal sense, in a solidarity sense, in an academic and intellectual sense, is really understanding who are you. And in a lot of the research that I'm doing, like that question of who are you really? Yeah, I again, I get everybody to some degree is, especially when we're speaking about like how you show up online, because social media has become a third space, and so that's why I'm also and always referring to it as like a space in which we all occupy. But also, how does that affect not only the way in which you tell stories, especially stories about yourself, how you also are perceiving stories of others, and how does that influence your interpersonal relationships? Mm. That's a pretty loaded question, in which I am going to end here, and I will see y'all in my next one. Oh, also make sure y'all go to my Patreon if you need any resources. It's there. So, yeah. See y'all in the next one.